Every path begins with a question. Every question is an invitation to learn. Every lesson holds a little magic. Hey, friends, I'm Raven Nightingale, and whether you're brand new to witchcraft or you've been practicing for years, I'm really glad you're here. So grab your favorite drink and get comfortable, and let's spend some time together. Welcome to Raven's Ramblings. Hey, everyone, welcome back. Get yourself a cup of coffee or tea or something stronger if that's what helps you to settle in. I'm your host, Raven, and tonight I want to talk about uh, some more beginner stuff. I know the main thing right now is these three words that uh, they get tossed around so often in witchcraft that they've almost started to lose their meaning. You'll know them: protection, cleansing, and warding. And if you have spent any amount of time around witchcraft, you have heard all three of these things. Now, the problem is they are often used like they mean the same thing. Someone will say, well, you need some protection, or someone else says, no, you need to cleanse. And then another person will say, no, you should put up some wards. And if you're new to witchcraft, you're probably sitting there wondering, aren't those all kind of the same thing? The short answer is no. They are related and they often work together, but each of those things have a completely different purpose. And once you understand that difference, your practice becomes pretty simple. So tonight, let's untangle that knot and simplify it. All right. Now, I want you to imagine your home, not your altar or your practice, just your house. Every once in a while, you vacuum or you dust or you take out the trash, you wipe down your countertops. That's cleaning because it's clean, right? Yeah, that didn't make any sense, but it's fine. It's fine. Now, before you leave for work, you lock the doors, maybe check your windows, or maybe you even have an alarm system or a security camera. Those are security measures, right? And then when you get into your truck or car, you buckle your seatbelt, right? Now, these are three completely different actions for three completely different reasons. Agreed? Agreed. Now, you would not vacuum your living room expecting it to stop a burglar, or you wouldn't buckle your seatbelt because your kitchen floor was dirty, and you wouldn't install a deadbolt because the bathroom needs mopping. Each one of these things solves a different problem. Now, magic works much in the same way. So let's start with cleansing. And I think cleansing is probably one that a lot of people misunderstand. Somewhere along the way, people have started acting like cleansing only happens because something terrible has happened, like someone has cursed you, or you feel like your house is haunted, or you accidentally invited a demon in because Mercury sneezed. I promise. Life is usually much less dramatic than the internet makes it sound. I think of cleansing as taking out the spiritual trash. Not because your home is evil or you're under attack, but simply because life leaves fingerprints or dust, right? Make sense? Yeah, just little remnants. Yeah. Have you ever had someone who visited your house and after they left, the whole place just felt kind of heavy? Not scary, just different. Or maybe you had a terrible week at work. You've been stressed, you've cried, you've argued, you've been overwhelmed. Now, where do all of those emotions go? Now, whether you believe energy is a literal spiritual force or simply the emotional atmosphere we create, most of us have experienced walking into a room and immediately feeling that something was off, kind of like spiritual dust. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Spiritual dust or emotional dust. And that's what cleansing addresses. All right. It is kind of a spiritual housekeeping. You aren't fighting monsters, but you are opening the windows and letting the fresh air in. All right. You are saying, okay, this feels a little weird, so let's kind of reset. And that's why cleansing can look like so many different things because you have smoke cleansing, you have sound cleansing with bells or singing bowls, you can do floor washes with like Florida water, salt, prayer, meditation, opening your curtains, opening the windows. All of those things are cleansings. Even taking a shower with the intention of washing away the stress of the day. That is a cleansing. Yeah. And I've even had days where laughing with friends or with my wife completely changed the feeling in the home. Joy is very cleansing. Peace is very cleansing. I think my thing is going wackadoo over here. Hey, there we go. So joy is very cleansing, peace is very cleansing, fresh air is very cleansing. And sometimes the most magical thing you can do is simply stop carrying yesterday into today, right? Cleansing. Make sense? All right. So now that we've got cleansing simplified, let's move into protection. And protection is where I think people start imagining this glowing force field kind of thing and magical bubbles. And hey, if visualizing that, a glowing shield works for you, fabulous. Keep doing it. But protection can be simpler than that. And trying to imagine this huge glowing bubble around a home for a new person can be very overwhelming. So we're going to simplify it. So protection is about strengthening yourself. It is about creating a buffer between you and the world, right? I think about it kind of like wearing a raincoat. The rain still exists, the weather itself has not changed, but you are prepared to walk through it, right? Simple, right? Simple. So, protection doesn't eliminate every difficult situation, but it does help you move through those situations, hopefully, without absorbing every single thing around you. Maybe that's a piece of jewelry that you wear every day because it reminds you to stay grounded. Maybe it's a crystal. Maybe it's even a prayer before you go to work or carrying herbs in your pocket. Put them in a little bag. You just don't want like loose herbs in your pocket. I mean, if you do, whatever, it's not my problem. But that's going to wreak hell on your washing machine. Or maybe it's even something like a protective sigil tucked inside your wallet. Yeah. Maybe it's simply taking 60 seconds before work starts to imagine yourself being surrounded by a calm, steady light. Yeah. Now, none of those things stop the world from being the world, but they remind you where your center is. And a lot of times, confidence itself becomes protection. Yeah. Oh, that was a thing. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that some people walk into a room and just seem completely unshaken by the chaos around them? They still are aware of what's happening, but they are just rooted and very grounded and very steady. And I think there's a lot of magic in that. Protection isn't about living in fear, it is about walking through life with intention. Yeah. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah. Sometimes I boggle my own mind with shit that rolls out of here. But yeah, right. Protection. Protection. Simple protection. It's a just in case. You're prepared. Anyway, starting to cook. Yeah. So let's talk about warding next. Now, this is where things get really interesting. But my AC kicked on. It's going to be fine. Warding. Warding is not primarily about protecting yourself. It is about protecting a place, like your home, your property, your sacred space, that kind of thing. So, excuse me, think of wards like the locks on your front door. Easy peasy, right? When you leave for work, your lock stays behind. It is still doing the job while you're gone. A protection charm may ride in your pocket or in your vehicle or something, but a ward always stays home or the place you put it. And I love that kind of a distinction because it does simplify it. Protection goes with you, warding stays in place. Yeah. Man, I feel very scattered. Anyway, uh, so protection goes with you, warding stays at the place. Now, some people create wards with sigils hidden above doorways. Others bury protective objects near the corners of their property. Some people use iron or brick dust, mirrors. Some people bury small witch bottles. Some people work with prayers. And some people ask the spirits of the land itself to help protect the space. I personally have black tourmaline at each of the four corners of my property, along with selenite above my doors, but that's for cleansing. I know. See how they kind of overlap? Yeah. But the point is there's not just one correct method because the purpose basically stays the same. You are creating, excuse me, y'all, I keep yawning. The purpose stays the same because you're creating a boundary. You are saying, this is my space, and only what serves this home is welcome here. Yeah. Isn't that fun? I love boundaries. Boundaries are my jam. Spiritual, emotional, whatever. I love a good boundary. Anyway, and because I think boundaries are very magical, just in general. So we usually think about boundaries as something psychological, but boundaries, of course, exist everywhere in nature. Tree bark protects the tree, skin protects the body, shells protect turtles, nests protect eggs. Boundaries are not unnatural. They are a huge part of our life, whether we really think about it or not. Yeah. And maybe that's one reason warding has existed in almost every culture on Earth in one form or another. Humans have always wanted their homes to feel safe, whether it was a cave back in caveman days or whether it's your $1 million mansion. Not mine, I don't have one. But anyway, and here moving on. Moving on. Jeez. Okay. Here's where I think some people become disappointed. They cleanse once, they carry one crystal, and they put a ward on their house. And then 6 months later, they say it must not have worked. Well, can I ask you something? When was the last time you vacuumed your house just once? Or brushed your teeth just once? Or locked your front door one time and figured, that's probably good forever? Of course not. Don't be silly. Don't be ridiculous. Life is messy. Life requires maintenance. Maintenance. There we are. That's the whole point there. It is a practice. Maintaining these things. Magic, at least in my own practice, is not about performing one spectacular ritual that fixes everything forever. No. No, 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 no. 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 Mm-mm. It is a relationship. It is care. It is tending to a garden. Sometimes, no matter how much you garden, weeds come back. That doesn't mean that the gardening isn't working. It just means that the garden needs tending. Yeah, maintenance. And I think our spiritual lives are very, very similar to that. So, how do these three things actually work together? Now, imagine that you've had an exhausting week. People have been arguing, you have been super stressed, everything feels super heavy, right? First, you cleanse. You clear away what no longer belongs. So, raw slate. Yeah. Then maybe you do a simple protection working for yourself before heading into another busy week. Boundaries, right? Finally, you refresh the wards around your home so that when you come back at the end of your workday or a long shift or whatever, your space feels like a place of peace. Three different actions, three different purposes, but they all work together. They're not competing, they're not replacing one another, they are supporting one another. So, one thing that I hope that you take away from tonight's conversation is you do not have to do every magical thing you see online. You do not need 27 crystals taped to your windows. You also do not need to smoke cleanse every Tuesday because someone on social media told you to. Ask yourself a simple question. What does this situation actually need? Yeah, pay attention to around you. All right. Does it need a cleansing? Does it need protection? Does it need warding? Or maybe, does it need a nap, a drink, and possibly a conversation? Yeah. Sometimes the most magical answer isn't the most dramatic one, it is the most honest one. And I think that's one of the reasons I love folk magic so much, is because it's very practical. I like practical things. I like whimsical things too, but in day to day life, I like practicality, and that is woven, this folk magic that I particularly practice is woven into my everyday life. It is less about chasing extraordinary experiences and more about paying attention to the ordinary ones. We clean our homes, we lock our doors, we use our seatbelts, not because we expect disaster around every corner, but because caring for ourselves is simply part of living well. And magic can be that simple too. Cleanse what doesn't serve you, protect what matters, and ward the spaces that bring you peace. Simple. Not because you're afraid, but because home, in every sense of the word, is worth caring for, right? So, thank you for spending a little time with me tonight. And as always, I would love to hear how you approach these things. Come send me a message, send me an email, send me a smoke signal, whatever. Tell me how you approach cleansing and protection and warding in your own practice. Of course, you can find me on all the social medias, or even on ravensramblings.com. All right. So until next time, my dears, stay curious, stay wild, and as always, stay witchy. Bye.